Hello, everyone. It's Ellen Besner, the host of the CJN's North Star podcast. This is what Jewish Canada sounds like. I am out of the office today, and while I'm away, we'll be bringing you an episode from our new podcast called In Good Faith. Enjoy.
I'm Avi Feingold, a rabbi and a writer with the Canadian Jewish News.
And I'm Yafa Sakeja, a Canadian-Palestinian entrepreneur and volunteer with the Canadian Friends of Standing Together.
This is In Good Faith, a podcast about open-hearted questions from open-hearted people, sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation with support from the Ronald S. Roadberg Foundation.
In this show, you'll hear from community leaders, activists, experts, and regular folks, Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians. We'll be having conversations, just hearing them out. Can we, as Canadians, have a space to just sit down across from one another and talk? Navigating who is and who's not a safe person for me to be around has been really challenging since even before the 7th of October, the month of the most devastating attack on Israeli life in their country's history, and the beginning of the most apocalyptic devastation of Palestinian life in our history.
All across the world, interfaith organizations and relationships have broken down since October 7th. Social media has driven us deeper into our echo chambers. Rabbis and imams who used to work side by side have fallen out.
When friendships become political, when it turns out you can't trust people you thought you could, it can be gut-wrenching, disabling, even haunting. Today on In Good Faith, Ronit and Ehab. Ronit Yarosky and Ehab Lotayef have known each other for 20 years. She's Jewish, he's Muslim. She's lived in Israel and served in the Israeli army. He's Egyptian and married a Palestinian woman. She spent more than 25 years working in the nonprofit sector. He's an IT professional, poet, and has been a board member with the Egyptian-Canadian Coalition for Democracy.
The most important thing that needs to be done is get people in a room.
That's Ronit.
So they can see that, the other person doesn't have horns. I don't think anything can happen until that happens.
I mean, if you ask me how did it start, I'm not sure I remember, but we did have a group of Arabs and Jews that were discussing together, and I did get to know people that I really liked from both sides.
Ronit Yarosky was raised in a very Jewish, very Zionist household.
My father especially really dreamed of moving there. His two brothers had moved there in the 50s, and he just didn't stop thinking about it. And so that happened.
One day when she was around 13, she came back from summer camp, and her father excitedly broke the news. They were moving to the Holy Land.
Off we went, and I integrated, I think, quite well. And, I had been in Jewish schools here, and then went obviously to a Jewish school in Israel, a high school, and just fell along or went along with the narrative as one does when one is young, and when many do when they are not so young.
And when she finished, she joined the Israeli Defense Forces.
Was drafted toward about mid-1986.
Right around the time of the First Intifada.
I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't really understand. And I saw some things during my service that were, when I looked back years later, were very difficult. But at the time, not so much. And then I kind of really put everything out of my mind for many, many years.
Ehab has been in Canada since 1989.
I, of course, lived in Egypt at the time, where there was no possibility of questioning the Palestinian question in any way. So it was an absolute justice versus injustice situation. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, was Palestinian 100% from both her parents' sides. So my kids are half Palestinian, and she immigrated with me here.
And the Second Intifada started, and I became active in a number of different organizations working there, Gush Shalom and Women in Black and Windows, and a bunch of them going to protests and et cetera, et cetera.
She found it invigorating and heartening to be surrounded by Jews and Palestinians who deeply understood the conflict and remained committed to peace. But when she returned to Canada, she found the political landscape completely alien.
All I could find was you're either this or you're that. If you're pro-Palestine, you get to be automatically anti-Israel. If you're pro-Israel, you get to be automatically pro-Palestine. And that's not the narrative that I really think you can be many things at the same time.
Although I was always a strong supporter of justice for Palestine and the Palestinian people, I also always felt that I had enough of self-confidence and confidence in the knowledge I had and in my emotional ability to control myself, that I never hesitated to talk to anybody, regardless of where they come from or what I know they support or believe in or whatever.
I do believe that there are a lot more people who maybe don't think quite like me, not as radical as I'm defined as me, but I think that there are a lot of people in the Jewish community who are really not comfortable with what's going on, but they don't have permission to say it out loud. And somehow we started the Montreal Dialogue Group, which went on for a number of years and was, I think, pretty successful. And there were some moments there that were really mind-blowing when suddenly people had these penny drop moments.
There was, why are you doing this? What's the benefit of doing this? They will never understand what you're talking about. They might convert you, not to Judaism, but in the cause, soften you, whatever. But actually, none of that happened.
People would sit in a room with somebody who had never spoken to a Jew before, never spoken to a Muslim before, and people who came with a teeny little opening. It was for me magical.
I understood many things that I didn't understand before, but at the same time, I didn't change my core understanding of the conflict.
The goal of this group, like many groups in Canada, wasn't to change anyone's mind.
I'm not going to convince Ehab of something. Well, maybe, but that's my purpose, is so that he just understands my perspective.
It wasn't a debate. It was a conversation. It was, can you put your guard down just for a minute and have a dialogue? Can we empathize with each other's pain?
It's a process. You don't have people coming in and right away they meet, the Jew meets the Palestinian and all of a sudden they're best friends. And, it's not like that typically. I will give it one example that I remember a few, but this one, I don't remember who was speaking. It was around the time that Avi Yilno, Herzliya, and Ville Saint Laurent, so one of the Jewish high schools, had a Molotov cocktail through it. And that was the school I went to before we went to Israel.
I taught at that school.
I'm sorry?
You taught at that school, yeah.
That's funny. All worlds collide. Someone very respected in the community was talking about how this made her feel really terrified. How for her mind went from this Molotov cocktail to Auschwitz, in 60 seconds. And one of the other participants, who was not Jewish, said, for the first time, I really understand that you are scared. And I don't really understand why, because you have this huge army and et cetera, et cetera. But I really get that you are scared. And that was a huge thing. Huge. That it's not this made up fear. People are scared. Okay, now we know that now. We know why, one of the reasons that's contributing to this. How do we work together? And also, we weren't there to solve the problems of the Middle East. The idea was to create community and break down some barriers and show, we don't have horns.
It's work that doesn't stop. It's an ongoing conversation, and it's not easy.
Be uncomfortable, get really uncomfortable. If you never allow yourself to be uncomfortable and you're only listening to people speaking who support what you think, nothing is, how can you grow as a person? You're never going to learn anything new. And it's much easier to stay in your little corner and your little bubble and live how you've always lived with all the information that you have. It sucked when I discovered this about Israel. It was horrible to have to come to terms with that. And then I discovered it about Canada, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to do this again. But how can change happen without leaning into that?
And there is something I would like to add here is that it was very rare to find somebody who's dogmatic. When I, for example, meet an MP and realize that he or she is just saying, but it's Hamas, but it's Hamas, but it's Hamas. You feel that there's just a line that they are following so that they don't get into a logical discussion with you. That did not happen in the dialogue group. There was not this kind of defensive thing, people clinging to a party line in a way and just keep repeating it. Most people by far were talking about the real emotions, how they really felt about things, how they hoped that things would resolve. Many times unrealistic, many times based on ignorance about the other, but not coming in as a negotiator who say, I'm not going to give an inch, that kind of position. So that was an interesting thing as well.
And that's how I met Ehab. And it's, I don't even want to think about how many years. It's a long time. And we've worked pretty closely together over years on different initiatives, a lot on Israel-Palestine, Law 21. I don't know when Ehab sleeps. He's like a professional protester and has a full-time job, etc., etc.
Even as the Montreal dialogue group tapered off, Ronit and Ehab remained friends. They stood shoulder to shoulder in protests. They shared meals and texted often. And then, October 7th. On the night of October 6th, Ronit's phone started beeping. A lot.
And I remember thinking, what is that? Because I hadn't heard it in so long, I'd forgotten what it sounded like. And there was one, there was another one.
It was the red alert she'd set for Israel. She hadn't lived there in decades, but her family still did, including her mother and her sister.
By then it was really getting late, and they were okay, and the bomb stopped, and I said goodnight and went to sleep in total ignorance, and woke up, of course, the next morning to discover, like everyone, what had happened. Can I swear? In fucking disbelief. To me, the level of this was, beyond the beyond. Like I'm convinced they were all on some kind of whatever they were giving the American soldiers in Vietnam, because humans are horrible. But I can't. Anyways, whatever.
The first people she texted that morning were her family members, and the first person after that was Ehab.
And I think what was on Facebook Messenger, and I think I said something like, Ehab, tell me something, meaning tell me something that's going to help me. And he told me that people under occupation have the right to armed resistance, is what he told me in that moment. And in that moment, all I felt was, I've known you for 20 years. We've walked side by side. You've been at my house for Shabbat supper, I don't know how many times. You've been to my synagogue. Like, we're friends, we're friends. And we work on this. This is the issue we work on. And for 1 second, you can't put down your fucking front and just hold my hand for 1 second. And that's how I felt. And I was devastated. I was so hurt.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump in right away, because I know how I saw October 7th. I saw October 7th as something that was inevitable, and I saw it that it is a part of the sequence of events. And although I always, and even on October 7th, never thought that attacking civilians is a solution in any way, yet I did not feel that it was right in the way it happened, but I felt that it was explicable, clearly explicable. And that prevented me, or not prevented me in a conscious way, but prevented me from showing any empathy to the other side. And also, I guess this is what I can say today with hindsight. I saw it as a broke the arrogance of the Israeli establishment, but not something that poked the weakness and the trauma of the Jewish Israeli person.
Do you remember getting that email, Ehab?
I remember. You mean I remember the text at the beginning, at the very beginning, on October 8th or whatever. 7th. Okay. And yes, hindsight is much easier, the situation, but at that time, my reaction was, maybe it's the opposite. Well, can't you see that this was inevitable? I wanna add something also. On October 8th and 9th, and I don't remember when it was exactly, that there was a reluctance by all pro-Palestinians to speak to the media. I mean, Canada. And I took that challenge.
Good morning, David Hertel with you.
And I accepted an interview with CJAD.
Mr. Lotayef, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me with you.
First of all, just you personally, your reaction to the events of the weekend.
I think I have to start by saying, no matter what is my view about the problem, I have strong sympathy feelings and more with any civilians that were hurt or taken hostage in that situation. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't want to oversimplify the situation to one side or one point of view. I think that this problem has roots in decades and decades of inhumanizing the Palestinian people, not only in Gaza, but in Gaza and the West Bank. Many of us knew that it will blow up one day, and it will keep blowing up.
It was very difficult to strike a chord that at the same time is not pro-terrorist, and I'm making air quotes here, and at the same time pro-Palestinian.
What was your reaction when you saw the images here in Montreal of the pro-Palestinian demonstration? I mean, there were some pretty horrific moments during that demonstration in Montreal yesterday. I mean, I agree with you, and I appreciate the points you're making, sir, but how do we get over this when we see these horrible images coming out of Israel, civilians being slaughtered, and then as a reaction, we have people here in Montreal almost celebrating that?
Well, which is a reaction for which? And that is really a sincere question. I'm not trying to duck the question.
I understand.
There is a lot of anger. Who spoke up in the previous attacks on Gaza that happened in 2008, 2014, 2016? One forgets the list of attacks when thousands of civilians were killed in Gaza. Civilians. And I know there's always excuses that Hamas is hiding between the civilians. There is always a way to find a reason to say that you are not mistaken and the other is mistaken.
I was struggling with myself very much what to say and what not to say to convey the way I'm thinking and feeling without being offensive to the other side or being sympathetic with something I don't feel sympathetic towards.
And I honestly, I will tell you the truth. I mean, I participated in the demonstration yesterday. I'm not going to say there were no horrific things. I don't know, but I didn't see anything horrific. I saw people that are saying that finally now we have done something on a level that has been being done to us for generations. And let's not ignore human nature, and let's not call one side terrorist while the other has been doing the same thing but wearing an army fatigue, so he's not a terrorist.
I mean, I'm mentioning this because I'm saying that what was going on inside every one of us in this situation, which was a total change of the norm we lived in for the last 50 years, was very difficult. Because the norm was that you complain about the violence of the other side, about that the other side is not controlled, is too powerful, is whatever. And then it was a different situation. And how to deal with it, that's not easy. That is not easy.
I mean, with Ehab, it was particularly painful. But I think that I can't say all that I am aware of, sort of lefty Jews, we all went through that same thing. It's like all of our friends who we've been working with all disappeared. Nobody was interested in our well-being and how we felt. It's like, we're only friends with you when you are supporting Palestine. And that was a huge, huge blow. And I remember for a long time wondering, I don't know if we could, how do we repair this? It's like, we'll have to go back to Montreal Dialogue Group like the first day, 101.
A year went by, and the two friends didn't speak to each other. No dinners, no calls, no texts, no emails.
And we just lived with that for a long time. And what happened in here was that there's an annual Iftar, Passover, Easter kind of event that I was going to, and I was sure that I would see Ehab there, and I was freaking out that I was going to see him there. And so I sent him an email. I don't remember exactly what I wrote there, but it was quite long, and saying how I felt and how hurt I had been, and I don't want our first encounter, our first exchange after this to be this weird standing in a hall not knowing what to say to each other.
But that was just to clarify, that was about a year later, right?
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, just to put things in context. Yeah.
Maybe more. Maybe more.
Yeah.
It was a long time. It was a long time. He didn't come to that dinner. He wasn't coming, but we met sometime after and were able to repair. And he told me what he was going through in that moment on October 7th. And I hadn't even thought of considering what he was feeling. And what must have been going on inside him, because I know you would never support horrific, horrible actions against humans, against women and children. And it was so wonderful to me to hear you just say, I just lost it was like he lost his sense of humanity for a second. He was lost in what was happening, like so many people were. But I think the fact that we had been friends for so long and that we had open and honest communication meant that we were going to find a way beyond it, and we did.
And we also believed that in each other, that we're good people, whatever good people means. That there is no hidden stuff and maneuvering and all that stuff, and that helped as well, being open and accepting that this is something that should be mended and could be mended. So it was mended, and
I think part of that also, if I may, is understanding that within each and every one of us are multiple identities or feelings or opinions, and really that you can be more than one thing at the same time, and you can be something today and tomorrow you're not going to be that because the circumstances are different today. We all lost our minds a little bit after October 7th. I mean, there's no question about that. I'm involved in another dialogue group now with people that I knew from the Montreal Dialogue Group who I hadn't been in touch with and who had never reached out to me the whole time. And I have to make a decision. Am I going to hold a grudge for the rest of my life against these people, or am I going to find a way to move forward? What do you do with your family members? What do you do with your kids when they're being horrible, or your spouse is, whatever? People go through terrible times. You got to figure it out. You got to find a way to move forward that everybody can live with.
Many of us have fallen out with friends just like this. If this has happened to you, you're not alone. People post things online that they would never say out loud, and it's horrific. This has happened to me personally over the last 2 years. One really good friend yelled at me over the phone to get the F out of her life after seeing how I chose to empathize with the hostages online. On the other hand, I was really hurt by some of the posts my other longstanding friends made about Gazans, almost to underwrite the collective punishment of 2 million people.
Can you help us through some of the process of reconciliation? What did it look like to start building that trust again?
Sometimes you can't fly the plane when you're building it, and you got to wait till things settle down a little to do that right now. I was expecting something from you. I was also expecting something from you because you're my friend. And I think one of the reasons that Ehab and I have been successful is because of that friendship and because of the many years of trust. But I have family members, very close family members, who that's a big struggle right now. And I have to make a decision. Do I love this person enough to just, I can't even say agree to disagree, because like I don't agree about any, but to say, okay, because nobody will talk to anybody if we say, I'm not going to talk to anybody who supports Trump. I'm not going to talk to anybody who supports it. Everyone will be isolated. We can't work like that. Give it time and wait for the moment. And when you yourself can collect your thoughts and you yourself are calmed down and they're in a better place, and that might take a long time, but slowly, shwaya, shwaya.
I don't know. I don't have advice to give. But I'm saying that it's a dynamic situation. There is always new things that are happening. I'm always open to reconsider my own positions. Maybe that's something that is important, and continue to listen to the other, and that I also have to face my own community, my own people, in saying that not everything is justified and not anything is justified.
Yeah, that was definitely an issue. Maybe still remains so today. I have family now who haven't been speaking to me since 2014. I mean, it's very difficult. People would rather peel off all their skin with a blunt knife than publicly criticize Israel because of the repercussions that could bring. It's just really scary.
You know what? I only woke up to this, how difficult it is to stand against the sentiment of your own people when the revolution happened in Egypt and the society became so polarized. And I understood what it means, how difficult it is to stand against the mainstream of your group, of your people. And only then, really, did I understand how difficult it was for somebody like Ronit and many others, how difficult it was for them to do what they did over the past 20 years before October 7th. And that's why they expected something from me on October 7th that I did not understand.
I had been wearing a Star of David, not for support of Israel or support of Judaism. I had actually been wearing a Star of David for a number of years to protest my little mini protest against Law 21 in Quebec. No one was listening, but anyways, that's why I was wearing it. And more, I was finding that I was putting it behind myself or under my clothes. And it was a moment where the encampments were happening. And people see a Star of David and because the sign for Judaism and the sign for Israel is the same thing. And they assume. So I took it off and gave it to Ehab to hold on to for me until I can put it back on. And for me, that's a bit of our friendship. That's our friendship.
Ronit and Ehab's story makes me think about the dynamics of friendships. Some parts are very universal, and at the same time, each and every relationship is completely unique. It's encouraging to hear them sort through their feelings together. But I also know that Ronit has been doing this kind of work for almost 25 years, many of them with Ehab already. They've spent decades building and strengthening these muscles.
That doesn't mean that we can't learn from them. For any of us who've had relationships bruised since the war began, or because we thought the politics were just too difficult to hold at the same time as the friendship, we need to give each other grace. We need to allow people time and space to heal. We shouldn't ask them to empathize with our pain while theirs is still just as raw. They're going to make mistakes. We all do. Give them the benefit of the doubt. We're all just trying to move forward.
These struggles and conversations are happening all across Canada, all the time. We confront it with the Friends of Standing Together. And there's also so many other people doing this kind of work. Dr. Amal El-Sana Al-Hajouj, Jeff Carolyn, Randall Schnur, Bashar Ashawa and Nikki Landau, Wissam and Ari and Sunnybrook, and honestly, so many more. You are going to hear from some of these folks later on in the podcast series. We're going to hear their perspectives, their stories, and the challenges they're facing. Because the fact is, these brave people get attacked verbally all the time. They do face criticism. They face death threats even, from every direction, by the way. But they're actually doing the work that benefits all of us, many of them as volunteers. They're under incredible pressure, but they're doing a collective public service because they're cleaning up the mess. They're putting out the fire, and all of us, we're breathing in smoke. So we have two choices. We can either watch them and eat popcorn, or we can help them. I'm asking all of us. They deserve our help, our support. Don't leave them alone. Show up and let's learn. What are they learning? What can they teach us? Where is the optimism that we can all learn from?
This has been In Good Faith, a podcast produced by the Canadian Jewish News, sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, with support from the Ronald S. Roadberg Foundation. Our production team is Zach Kaufman and Michael Freeman.
If you think someone you know would appreciate this episode, please share it with them.
Thanks for listening. Coming up on In Good Faith.
At the time, those two things, didn't surprise people, that you could be a social justice activist and at the same time be a Zionist. And I was there when I was 17, and a good friend of mine who was on a trip was killed in a terrorist bombing, in a Hamas bombing on a Tel Aviv beach. And I was supposed to meet her that night in Jerusalem. So I was waiting for her in Jerusalem, and she was killed.
We ended up having this huge, one of the biggest marches, around 50,000 people. And when we reached the Qalandia checkpoint, which is a big checkpoint between Ramallah and Jerusalem, unfortunately, the Israeli soldiers opened fire on us. The sniper light was moving on my body. The soldier was aiming on my head, and I ended up taking the bullet in my leg.
And in a way, I think I'm still responding to not just the loss of her and what that meant for her family, but also what I saw unravel afterwards.
Imagine me being, for the first time, in a peaceful protest and ended up without, the ability to walk all these nights, filling me with anger, and how the language of peace and peaceful resistance do not work. But I can tell you, the amount of pain I had is unbearable, and I really honestly don't want to see anyone suffering from the same pain.
I thought that the response to her death would be to say, we need to have peace now. No children should ever be killed like this. We need to have peace. And instead, what I saw was that things escalated, and that in fact her death was used as a way to escalate right up until the present day.